Both sides agree there doesn't appear to be a signal that the pickets will be put away anytime soon. As a matter of fact, UMW President Richard Trumka says the negotiations have almost been futile.
I mean, you have to take them for what they're worth. Pittston refuses to sit in the same room with us. They won't talk about anything. 15 months ago, they were asking for 100 and some concessions out of the contract that's expired. As we sit here or stand here today on Labor Day, 1989, they are, in fact, asking for over 100 concessions. They've not moved at all on anything. They've not made a single proposal to offer hope to the unemployed miner.
Trumka says the UMW is prepared to go the duration of the battle, however long it takes to get the contract that the miners want. Meanwhile, as
political people want to get involved in this now because they see how big it's getting as far as the labor movement, and everybody's wanting to get involved.
Jackson told the miners that they need a friend in the White House. Jackie Stump says Jackson was obviously trying to gather political support in St. Paul. 6 months ago today, the machinist strike again. And neither did their families. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell introduces us to two families and tells us how they've been dealing with the strike.
Yeah, we do that. James and Lola Grizzle were so eager to marry, they found a minister at a molasses stir-off and had the ceremony on the spot. 20 years and 4 kids later, they're enduring a lot less romantically with a union income that's less than half of Grizzle's pre-strike salary for mine equipment maintenance.
We're not as able to get along with the kids. We're grouchy. And we just have a harder time relating to people, you know, when we're frustrated and aggravated with the strike. Like I would like to.
Grizzle tries to escape the stress on a farm he purchased 6 years ago. The family's youngest child entered the 2nd grade this year. Another daughter wants to get married, but the family can't afford a wedding right now.
We have cut back even in food, you know. We don't buy groceries as often as we used to, and we don't buy certain things that we used to. The longer the strike continues, the worse it's going to be. See, we have a payment on this truck here to make, and if it continues long enough, I'll have to drop the payments. I mean, I won't be able to make it.
40 years old and employed by Pittston since 1976, Grizzle says the contract Pittston has offered the union offers him no future.
And before we came out on strike, they engaged in contracting out a lot of the work that we were doing and us there working. So we feel like if they have that in the contract, that they will contract out all the work. And so I want them to have a job.
The strike cloud is also hanging over this house on Hatchet Mountain in Dickinson County, where Daryl and Avis Sutherland are raising 4 teenagers. They've cut out luxuries most people take for granted.
Well, we don't go out to the movies. You know, we don't go out and blow money on anything that's not needful. We didn't go out and buy a whole lot of new school clothes this year like the children we used to, which they understood and accepted. And I'm so proud that they've had to go through this, really, because it's taught them things, you know, that you don't just go out and buy. Money doesn't grow on trees, you know. And we had it hard once, and I'll remember that.
Sutherland has taken on odd jobs to supplement his family's income, repairing engines and mowing lawns for elderly neighbors. After 14 years with Pittston at a coal tipple, his big concern is benefits for pensioners.
They had the promise of lifetime health benefits, which they take away from them. And what are they going to do when I retire? Will there be such a thing as health benefits when I retire?
Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Support striking mine workers. The cars came streaming in from Michigan in a caravan, and along with moral support, the United Auto Workers brought financial help, checks totaling more than $100,000.
Because through this strike and through all of our banding together, we are standing up together for the best in America.
UMW President Richard Trumka is continuing his criticism of Virginia Governor Gerald Baliles' decision to send state troopers to the coal fields.
Well, I think the best thing the governor can do is call Paul Douglas and Rich Trumka and say, come to the governor's mansion. We're going to put you in this room back here with a desk and a couple of pads and paper, and whenever you have an agreement, come on out. Until that, I don't want to hear from you.
But the next meeting between the union and the Pittston Coal Group is scheduled in Northern Virginia next week. Early 100 churches say they aren't pro-union, but they are against the suffering the strike has caused.
The march attracted hundreds of striking coal miners and supporters, led by church clergy representing some 20 denominations supporting the UMW strike against Pittston. Pittston criticized church leaders as misinformed and biased before the march.
I'm very biased. I'm biased for the poor and the needy, and I make no bones about it. You know, they have all the power and all the money and all the influence, so...
The marchers sang and chanted along the parade route. They attracted a small audience in town, but lots of police. This march is winding all around the town of Abingdon. It's virtually leaving traffic at a standstill here on Main Street and others. The march attracted a large group of workers striking Eastern Airlines. They say their strike and the mine strike are similar.
The similarity is the management's philosophy of truly stealing from the people.
The march ended at Abingdon's federal courthouse with a rally. Among the crowd was the Catholic nun who attracted publicity in July when she was arrested for impeding coal traffic in a health mobile but acquitted later.
Other churches, as well as the Catholic Church, have said that they wanted to be able to stand up and be counted as well.
In the end, church clergy issued a statement saying everyone should join the cause.
When the religious community is so supportive of the coal miners' cause, I believe that demonstrates to the public that the miners are genuinely correct and right.
In Abingdon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Hiring non-union construction workers at the Boise...
At a coal truck convoy banned for being part of a mob that intended to injure the drivers. One of the coal truck drivers was arrested. A grand jury indicted only 4, leaving 19 people out. Defense attorneys say that's not fair.
Evidence that was attempted to be brought against the union miners obviously was not very credible.
The truck driver still faces felony charges, but they have not yet been presented to a grand jury. A federal judge in Abingdon has dismissed charges against an Alabama coal miner who was accused of throwing a railroad spike at a coal truck.
Just singled out because I'm a union man, that's what I feel, and I didn't do anything, and it was proven here today that I didn't do anything, and I think that this should be stopped, that people just getting singled out. It costs them a lot of money, a lot of time off work, and it hurts, you know.
The miner was visiting Russell County in July to support the strike when he was arrested. The Dairyman Corporation expects to save about
The Virginia-Kentucky state line provided the setting for the latest rally of the United Mine Workers, which included around 50 members of the Communication Workers of America.
Several communication workers from as far away as Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. blocked coal traffic on Highway 23, but not for long. Kentucky police were standing by, ready to break it up.
The people of CWA are with you all the way. We'll be with you when this thing is over.
Around 30 coal miners striking in Wyoming were also on hand to show their support.
It's going to take something like this. It's going to take the working man to get off his behind and get something done about it. And that's not just union men, that's all of them. Union and non-union alike. And that's the way I feel about it.
The fight of the miners against Pittston is no different than the fight we've had against telephone companies. It's a fight for jobs with justice. It's the fight to have health care for our families and for retirees' families. It's the fight to maintain the standard of living that people fought for generations.
Communication workers were released and no charges were filed. In Letcher County, Kentucky, Wendy Griffith, News Center 5.
CWA officials say they still have 61,000 members out.
Explosion in a western Kentucky mine yesterday. 10 miners were killed in the accident. Nell Taylor spoke with the wife of one of the victims today.
Coal mining is the way Marcia McElroy's family has earned its way for 3 generations. Her grandfather was killed in a mine explosion in 1942. Yesterday, her husband Anthony died in the Williams Station mine disaster. Marcia's family is with her today. They've all lived through the sorrow the mines can cause.
You hear about them and you work in the mines and you go work the next day. It hurts, but until it really happens to your family, it's a different sort of hurt. You know, it's just one day he's here and the next day he's not.
Now 1-year-old Tia, the McElroy's daughter, inherits that uncertain life the miners live.
Anthony McElroy.
While Marcia's family comforts her, in a neighboring town, Dr. George Nichols read a list of the dead and told the media how those men died.
The decedents all succumbed to at least carbon monoxide and or smoke inhalation.
Nichols said only one of the men had his gas mask on, but it was not covering his face. The rest still had the masks on their belts.
Company began, but the company feels confident enough to give news media tours of its largest and most dangerous underground mine. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports.
Pittston President Mike Odom guides a tour of the McClure No. 1 mine, considered the company's most dangerous since the 1983 explosion that killed 7 miners. With a new workforce underground here since the union strike began, Odom says in-house safety checks are much more diligent.
Nobody's under any pressure here to perform or to produce. Safety is given, as always, top priority with consideration for production. So, the principles are the same before the strike or after the strike.
Company officials say they've hired experienced miners as replacement workers who are developing camaraderie and a safety-prone attitude.
These workers have learned the safe procedures. They know what they're doing. As well as the miners,
methane gas is blamed for some of coal mining's biggest tragedies, but roof falls are still considered the biggest threat, and longwall mining reduces that risk.
No one's exposed to the roof conditions. Everyone's always working under the hydraulic supports, which makes it the safest means of mining today.
Strike tensions are a distraction to the replacement workers, but Odom says the company battled distractions before the strike.
Like in 1988, when we didn't have a contract and was negotiating, the union was constantly keeping our union employees distracted with talks about the negotiations or with rallies or with other propaganda material. So, I mean, even before the strike with our existing workforce, there was tremendous distraction.
An occupational safety agency in Washington indicated recently that safety did suffer at Pittston operations before the strike. In McClure, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
AFG Industries.
Russell County Judge Donald McLaughlin set the fine after ruling this morning the union had violated his court orders on the UMW strike against Pittston 60 times. UMW Vice President Cecil Roberts said today McLaughlin's ruling indicates the judge is taking sides.
It's clearly been on Pittston's side from day one in this strike. There's not been any evidence established that the union supported or condoned any acts of violence. There's never been any evidence established in court or proof in court that individual members of the union are responsible for these acts of violence.
Roberts says the union will continue its civil disobedience for whatever length of time it takes to end the strike and get their point across. Meanwhile, nearly 100 striking United Mine workers are continuing their sit-in at Pittston's Moss No. 3 preparation plant. Striking miners occupied the facility late yesterday afternoon in protest for what they say is Pittston's refusal to negotiate. Virginia State Police and company officials toured that site to confirm that no property damage had occurred. Pittston Company spokesperson Susan Copeland says the company is continuing to monitor the situation, and their main concern is the safety of all of their employees.
Occupying the plant is not armed, but is keeping police at bay with a crowd of supporters. The union is citing huge court fines against it as one reason for the plant takeover, and the fines are growing. We have the latest details in 2 reports. The first from News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell.
Bills, we picket at the bridge, we go to jail, we get on the road, we go to jail, there's no place left. This is it. This is it.
The 99 occupying Pittston's Moss 3 preparation plant, one of the world's largest, have blockaded themselves in the master control area and are manning a balcony outside.
We've always known it was a thing that they've always mismanaged the situation. And we see now by coming up here and checking it out, that's what's been going on.
We can't operate the plant. They hold the master control area. And we've asked them to leave. We've told them they're trespassing.
Growing ranks of state police are allowed in to make periodic checks and sweep the area by helicopter. They have made no moves so far to try to force the strikers out.
We're just trying to monitor the group and make sure that no one gets hurt.
Obviously, law and order has to be restored in the area. We're cooperating fully with the appropriate state and federal officials in dealing with this latest act of violence by the union.
Mike Odom is making a living off of insulting the people of Southwest Virginia, and this is another example. These people did something quite dramatic because they want to save their jobs and save their families and save their livelihoods. That's what this is about, and Mike Odom wants to take it away.
Union members say this means enough is enough. They've had it with courts clamping down on their strike tactics and no progress in contract talks. Plant takeover took not only Pittston and police by surprise, but relatives of strikers occupying the plant.
When he left, he says, don't ask where I'm going or what I'm doing or when I'll be back, because I really don't know.
Hundreds of other strikers and union supporters are blocking the plant gates. If police do make a move, they'll have to deal with the crowd first. In Russell County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
No one was surprised about the judge's ruling when the word reached the pickets here at Moss number 3. The latest $13.5 million in penalties bring the total to $24 million in fines levied against the union since the strike began in April.
We're not going to stop. No one's going to be able to turn us around. The court's not going to turn us around. The injunction's not going to turn us around. The state police not going to turn us around.
We should be able to get a contract without spending that much money. But what good's that money if our members are suffering?
The $13.5 million includes $2.8 million for 28 violent acts, $1.5 million for 3 violent acts involving serious personal and property injury, and $2.2 million for nonviolent acts before July 24th, when International Vice President Cecil Roberts was arrested for blocking the Moss 3 entrance. 11 nonviolent incidents after that date have cost the union $5.5 million.
He's been somewhat vindictive with respect to that. I think he feels that perhaps I embarrassed him somewhat publicly, and he's going to take it out on the union.
Another $1 million was levied against the union for not controlling the violence surrounding the 6-month-old strike. Despite the new fines, the protests are continuing, and there appears to be no indication that either the court action or the demonstrations will stop in the near future.
We don't pay no attention to the fines. People don't know what life's all about.
Shortly after making the ruling, Judge McLaughlin began a new 2-day hearing into some 60 more allegations against the union.
I think it's outrageous. I think it's an indication of where the priorities are in this country and the legal system in this country.
Despite the fines, the union appears to be entrenched, and it continues to receive support from other labor organizations.
We must help them survive this strike, and it's crucial to their survival that we be here. In addition, it sends a signal around the country that we're going to draw the line here at Pittston. We're not going to allow the union to be busted, and working people aren't going to be allowed to be pushed around again.
In Russell County, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
Dozens of miners are camping out this week on the grounds of the state capitol in Richmond. The miners are hoping to meet with Governor Gerald Baliles, but the governor is out of the state and won't be back until tomorrow. The Mine Workers Union has attacked the governor's decision to send state troopers into the coal fields, The miners plan to stay on the Capitol grounds all week. 11 inmates.
Moss No. 3 preparation plant in Russell County, Virginia late yesterday. The plant has been a hotbed of activity ever since the takeover, as hundreds of strikers and supporters have filed into the area. Arrest may be forthcoming, but today everything was quiet at the scene, and Christopher McIntosh was there.
God bless all of you. We'll probably see you in jail.
Cecil Roberts, UMWA Vice President, had those encouraging words for the 99 protesters sitting in at the Moss No. 3 preparation plant. The 99 say they will stay there as long as the food holds out or until state police decide to arrest them.
You know, you do something like this, you expect arrest any time or so, you know, but we're prepared for it there. Our people are, so if they start arresting, there's going to be a whole lot of arrests that's going to happen there.
I love you, honey. Love me too. Thanks for coming over.
Down below, wives and relatives of the strikers were on hand to show support for their cause.
I'm really proud of him that he's standing up for what he believes in. I'm behind him 100%.
John Cox, a union spokesman, brought out an example of the backpack being used by the 99 strikers. All the necessities were included in the kit, complete with enough food for 7 days.
Well, they're self-contained for 7 days right now, as they said, and longer if they, you know, like eat snacks, and they've got by-uni sausage and treat, various things like that. They could stretch these meals here out longer if they need be.
The plant entrance has been effectively blocked with strikers and supporters who say they are there to get arrested first before the men in the plant are.
We've got probably 1,400 people out here, and the majority of them have said that they're willing to sit down in the entrance, and they have to go before the 99 go.
Christopher McIntosh, Eyewitness News 11, Russell County, Virginia.
Well, it's
Members of the United Mine Workers Union continue to mass around Pittston Coal Group's Moss No. 3 preparation plant tonight as nearly 100 of their members occupy the plant for the third night. Good evening, I'm Drew Doyle. As the occupation of Pittston's preparation plant continues, a federal judge heard evidence from the National Labor Relations Board to determine if the takeover constitutes contempt of court. Judge Glenn Williams continued the hearing until tomorrow. Union leaders at the plant were subpoenaed for the hearing, but refused to appear. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports from the occupied plant.
Federal marshals came with court orders for union leaders directing the plant takeover to appear in court for a contempt hearing.
We're going to hang right here with you. Probably don't have time to go to court this evening. I guess that there's a good chance that somewhere around tomorrow or late tonight that there'll be somebody looking to take me away, but that's all right. Don't worry about that. There's a whole lot of people who work for a living, and I imagine there's millions and millions of working class people in this country. We've got some excellent leaders here. We've got a plan. If I go and John goes and Jackie goes, there's
to meet with Roberts and police.
No comment. He expressed an interest and a desire to see this resolved without mass arrest and possibly the National Guard, and I appreciate that.
So you're willing to talk further with him?
Oh, I'm willing to talk, as we have been here, to any of the authorities. We've tried.
Roberts also said he doesn't expect the takeover to end without mass arrest. If and when mass arrests might be made, obviously, is a police secret, but they are bringing in these big buses they've used before for mass arrests in the strike. At one point, 3 striking miners from the occupied plant came out to meet with an estimated 1,500 supporters.
They turned the water on sometime last night. They turned the water off the other day. I don't know, maybe thought they would get us out earlier or something, but they turned the water on last night. And we're cleaning the place up. It was in a real mess when we got here.
2 state troopers are standing guard just outside the plant and are allowing union members to deliver supplies inside. In Russell County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
The union was hit with another $3.5 million in fines today in Circuit Court in Russell County. The fines are payable to the Clinchfield Coal Company, a subsidiary of the Pittston Coal Group. Russell County Judge Don McLaughlin appointed Pittston attorneys as special prosecutors to collect the fines and gave the union until 5 o'clock September 26th to pay all state court fines. The City of Bristol, Tennessee City Council voted on a second and final reading tonight to annex a corridor of Piney Flat.
The minister continued their occupation of the Moss 3 coal prep plant near Carbo, Virginia. The group, who began the massive sit-in on Sunday, watched and waited to see if state police would move in on the plant and end the demonstration. But law enforcement-led damage inspections of the plant have apparently turned up nothing. And UMW VP Cecil Roberts says the union's nonviolence is making for better relations with police.
For the first time in a long time, the miners and their representatives in the state police have been able to work together to keep order. We've tried to meet them halfway, and I think they've tried to meet us halfway with respect to that.
Union officials say the goal is 45 days for the strikers to occupy the plant. That would be a day longer than former UMW leader John L. Lewis's famous auto worker sit-in some 50 years ago. Current union members say this plant demonstration was way past due.
They should have done it 18 months ago. If they had done it 18 months ago, we'd have had a contract today.
The state police and all have arrested us and carted us all to jail, probably about 3,000 of us. And that didn't work, so we had to have some way of a turning point. I feel like this is the turning point.
A turning point that could provide even more hope for union families. Tim Cable, Eyewitness News 11, Carbo, Virginia.
Meanwhile, federal labor officials today asked a judge to punish the United Mine Workers and its leaders for ignoring a court order to end the occupation of the preparation plant. UMW officials refused to even appear before federal Judge Glenn Williams for today's hearing in Big Stone Gap, even though they were subpoenaed. Williams says he'll rule on the contempt charges tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, Wayne Crickmer, the plant manager of Moss No. 3, likens the union's action to terrorism.
I think the main concern here is getting this thing settled as quickly as possible without any major confrontation. But the Virginia State Police control their own situation, and we would like to have our plant back as soon as possible. Like watching something out of Omar Gaddafi or something, you know, terrorism strikes Southwest Virginia, and threatening our employees, rushing the plant. It's a classic, really.
Just yesterday, Judge Donald McLaughlin fined the union $13 million.
Stay right here.
Regardless?
Regardless.
Striking United Mine Workers are ordered off Pittston Coal property, but have vowed not to move. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Betty Payne.
And I'm John Cleary. Thanks for being with us. A showdown is set for this evening at 7 o'clock between striking United Mine Workers and U.S. Federal Marshals. Today, the UMW was ordered to cease their 4-day takeover of a Pittston plant. But UMW leaders say they would rather be arrested than give up their fight against Pittston. Striking United Mine Workers who own stock in Pittston Coal Company continued the 4th day of their takeover of the Moss No. 3 preparation plant today.
10 Breaker man.
He wants his daddy home.
Okay.
I sent your medicine. I got some more medicine for you.
Family members have been communicating with their loved ones by two-way radio from the entrance of the plant. High atop the prep plant, striking miners reiterated their determination.
When the police move them, they better have plenty of buses because there's more union people that are coming in from all over the United States that will take their place. There's not enough jails to hold us. So I just don't see how, there's not enough state police that can hold us. So we'll just keep doing it.
But by noon, the scene changed. Judge Glenn Williams in Abingdon, Virginia, ruled after a 2-day hearing that the striking miners must vacate the Moss plant by 7 o'clock this evening. U.S. Marshals arrived on the scene shortly after the ruling and served papers on UMW Vice President Cecil Roberts.
And I have a copy for each one of you. All right. And if I could request your cooperation in meeting with these other 4 individuals, that's
Cecil, what's going to happen after 7 o'clock tonight?
It's not up to me. It seems to be like it's up to somebody else besides me. We're going to stay right here.
Regardless?
Regardless.
Federal marshals say they have an X number of men on the scene today to handle the situation in Carbo. Roberts, after being served with the papers, went to the front of the Moss plant and told nearly 1,000 striking miners and supporters to continue their nonviolent protest and to be prepared to be arrested. Newswatch reporter Joe Orlando is on the scene in Carbo, Virginia, and will have a complete update on what takes place tonight at 11 o'clock.
Kingsport.
A federal judge says he will have key union leaders arrested and will impose heavy fines if the pickets do not meet his deadline. Judge Glenn Williams says the protesters can leave before 7 and not face penalties. We have 2 reports on the situation tonight. We begin with News Center 5's John Mongol.
Sunday's occupation of the Moss 3 plant has been the boldest move so far in the 6-month-old strike. The number of pickets and state police has grown steadily. But Judge Williams says the union can achieve an honorable and peaceful protest if it ends by 7 tonight.
The judge indeed did try to work out something and entered an order. There are some provisions of it which we believe offensive.
From the bench, Williams said the consequences of ignoring his deadline would not be pleasant. These include the immediate arrest of protest leaders.
Our view was that if they took out the union leaders in a situation where there were hundreds of people, that they might create problems rather than solve them.
Individual leaders may also face fines not payable by the union. The organization itself could face fines of up to $600,000 per day.
There still would have to be a hearing and a determination of whether there was a violation of the order after 7 o'clock tonight.
Judge Williams says his order may be criticized for being too tame and too weak, but it does give union members a chance to leave the Moss No. 3 plant without penalty. But that's a decision they'll have to make in less than 1 hour. In Abingdon, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
The order will be enforced.
That's the message U.S. Marshals brought to the plant, serving the eviction notice at the plant gates to union leaders who directed the commando-style takeover, and then walking with them to serve the 99 inside.
When these people who made this company can be kicked out of here, and a bunch of people who never seen this place up until 6 months ago can take their jobs, then we'll vacate. But I don't think anybody can justify that for me.
Well, as long as you all remember, we've all got a job to do. We'll all work this out somewhere.
Union leaders say they will direct their crowd of strikers and supporters to block any effort to evict the plant with civil disobedience. Those occupying the plant have gas masks and heavy gloves in case of a tear gas attack.
We don't know what's going to happen, but there's one thing about it. We're prepared for whatever they send down.
Before the judge made his ruling, Roberts contacted Virginia Governor Gerald Baliles through a lawyer and made an offer to vacate the plant.
We weren't asking much, just a designated meeting such as Judge Williams did previously to get the parties together. And I think the problem is that the governor's office pretty much felt like Paul Douglas would not meet.
With the clock ticking toward the 7 o'clock deadline, the 99 in the plant say no matter what happens, they've already accomplished their goal of making a statement.
Tell corporate America that, we just want to continue the way of life that we've had, and, why can't we do that?
In Russell County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Only one of the 11
is over. Some 100 demonstrators left the coal preparation plant after a rally that brought out 4,000 to 5,000 union members and sympathizers. News Center 5's John Mongol was at Moss No. 3 tonight. He joins us now. John, why now? Why did the union finally decide to leave?
Well, Drew, I think the union is claiming a definite victory tonight. They were able to shut down production at one of the company's largest plants for 3 full days, and they were able to do it without any arrest. The evening started with a prayer.
We ask you to bless us this night, Lord, as we carry on our struggle, Lord. We know, Lord, in the end, that good will overcome evil.
The pledge to the flag and a promise to continue defying state and federal court orders.
And an order that basically said you had to be out of here by 7 o'clock. I think it's about 7:45 right now.
But by the end of the evening, these men joined their leaders and left the Moss 3 plant they've occupied since Sunday afternoon.
It's one of those situations where we've got everything to gain and nothing to lose.
Declaring a victory, the pickets called, "Look out, McClure, here we come," referring to another large Pittston operation. The union obviously feels like they've won a victory in the 6-month-old strike and wants to try to continue to build on the momentum they have now.
There's no judge going to turn us around. There was no state trooper going to turn us around, or group of state troopers going to turn us around.
Drew, there still may be penalties, including fines and arrests, because they did miss Judge Williams' 7 o'clock deadline before they left the plant tonight.
Well, John, I'm wondering what Pittston thinks about all of this now.
Drew, I spoke with Mike Odom shortly before coming down here, and he is obviously very happy and very relieved that it's over. But he also says that they're going to pursue prosecution in every means.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see what happens. Thanks, John. Forecast.
And the company is calling the demonstration a total failure. Some 100 protesters left without violence, arrests, or fines so far. And the Moss No. 3 plant is back in production. News Center 5's John Mongol has more.
They beat Pittston, and they're going to get a contract here because Pittston doesn't have anything to contend with that.
They consider that it was a total failure for the union. They didn't get anything that they asked for.
But the controversy surrounding the end of the 4-day occupation does not stop with that. Federal Judge Glenn Williams changed his order, giving the union 4 more hours to vacate the building with amnesty, a deadline they were able to meet.
We, as a National Labor Relations Board, had advised the union, who had told us earlier that they may have trouble meeting that 7 p.m. deadline, that we would remain flexible if they peacefully vacated within a reasonable time.
Lawyers for the union and the board negotiated up to an hour before the massive rally at Moss 3, and that gathering was one reason the deadline had to be extended. And the rhetoric at the demonstration bothered company officials.
And an order that basically said you had to be out of here by 7 o'clock. I think it's about 7:45 right now.
What we strongly object to, though, is the union's apparent defiance of the order as originally issued while its attorneys were in court getting the order extended.
I was not reasonably sure that I had the extension from the NLRB. I was doing the on-site operation. Our legal people were doing a second operation. I knew of the negotiations with the NLRB. At the time that we elected to stay there past 7 o'clock, there was no guarantees.
One reason for the judge's delay was the union's inability to get all of the protesters out of the building.
Obviously, in a situation like that, there's people who think, well, the best thing to do is stay. But out of the 90-some people that were upstairs, I would say 90 of them were ready to leave.
The Labor Board had advised them that we would remain flexible, but that was still under the control of the judge.
Controversy also continues on other issues, including the way the occupation was reported. The union leadership liked the coverage.
I thought the entire coverage of the event was slanted. There was a crime being committed for 72 hours there.
The operation here at the Moss No. 3 preparation plant has returned pretty much to normal. But union officials say that they'll try similar demonstrations at other Pittston properties. And company officials say there's little they can do to stop that. In Russell County, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
President's week, union leaders vowed to hit the company's largest mine in Dickinson County, Virginia next. And today, leaders led several hundred strikers to the McClure mine. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports.
This crowd of striking miners started a march to the McClure No. 1 mine from their picket line, about 1.5 miles away on a state highway. State police rushed to the mine gates, not knowing what to expect, from the crowd led by Union Vice President Cecil Roberts.
We won't stop. We are totally committed. We are prepared in a nonviolent, peaceful manner to get our jobs back, because these are our jobs, our jobs!
Police had just enough time this time to get to the plant gates to guard them. The union didn't try to pass through, but vowed they'll be back to try to take back their jobs.
I don't want anybody else to move. Stay right where you are.
Police officials say they would have tried to arrest the crowd for trespassing had they crossed the gates to the mine.
We didn't know what to expect. We're simply flexible. We try to deal with the situation as it develops, and we did not know what to expect. But we were prepared for the worst scenario.
The march stopped coal truck traffic in and out of the mine for about 2 hours. Trucks started rolling again as the crowd marched away from the mine. In McClure, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
UMW Vice President Cecil Roberts says the union has no intentions of paying court fines. Millions of dollars in fines charged against the union for strike violence and violations of court are due.
What we've done is moved in Supreme Court for determination whether or not he can do what he's done, first of all, and also move for immediate appeal of those fines. And we didn't pay them, and we're going to resist that as long as possible.
The Russell County, Virginia court where the fines are due shows no record of an appeal. The union is facing over $25 million in fines in both state and federal court. Part of the money is payable to the Pittston Coal Group. Johnson City's program to become a regional medical
members were charged with contempt of court stemming from a July 26 sit-in at McClure's Moss Mine number 3. During today's proceedings, prosecutors took a page from the military using the technique of divide and conquer. They dismissed the charges against the 3 International Union Board members and granted them immunity to testify against Cecil Roberts.
And they think that there's some information that I, myself, or the others may have that will help them to get at the one person that they've been trying to get since this strike has started. We're just small fish. They want Cecil. And it's not going to work. They overlooked one simple fact, and that is I don't have any information that I can testify to that's going to help them to put Cecil Roberts or any other union brother in jail.
Defense attorney said today's action means the prosecution is targeting only high-ranking officials with the United Mine Workers. It also forced Judge Glenn Williams to postpone the Cecil Roberts trial until November 6. Roberts said that strategy may backfire since the momentum of the strike is building in other mining districts.
We've got about another 450 UMWA members that went on strike at 12:01 last night against companies that have been supplying coal to Pittston at the tune of about 80 or 90,000 tons a month.
Roberts added that others...
the Pittston Coal Group. Prosecutors also are taking steps to try to get testimony from inside the union against Union Vice President Cecil Roberts. That move has postponed Roberts' criminal contempt of court trial for another month. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has more.
The federal grand jury investigation, which could lead to serious criminal charges, became known when federal marshals served 3 union board members with subpoenas to testify later this month. 3 came to court to stand trial on contempt charges with Cecil Roberts for a summer mine sit-in. Federal prosecutors have now dismissed charges against all but Roberts and are trying to force the others to testify against Roberts by granting them immunity.
I think that the government is obviously after me, thinking that this will be a tactic they can gather more evidence to utilize against me in the next proceeding. Don't think it's going to work.
It's not going to work. They overlooked one simple fact, and that is I don't have any information that I can testify to that's going to help them to put Cecil Roberts or any other union brother in jail.
Myself, Vice President Cecil Roberts, and Don Barnett, Steve Weber, all think we are innocent of the charges. We have no evidence to give the government.
I don't believe in testifying against a union brother. I don't have any evidence and don't plan on giving any evidence.
Well, they'll be here as witnesses, and we'll see what they testify to under oath.
More subpoenas are expected in the grand jury investigation, which is predicted to cover a broad range of activities since the strike began 6 months ago. The 3 executive board members have been called to the federal grand jury October 18th, and Roberts will be back here in federal court November 6th. In Abingdon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
About 250 United Mine Workers walked off their jobs early today at mines that the union contends were filling orders for the Pittston Coal Group. UMW President Richard Trumka ordered selective strikes at the Sunglow Coal Company and the Rob Fork Mining Company, both in Kentucky. Meanwhile, in Washington, legislation was introduced to bail out the United Mine Worker Union's benefit trust funds, The legislation would enable the groups to transfer a negotiated amount of money from the union's overfund 1950 pension plan to the ailing benefit trusts. The union's International Executive Board is expected to discuss the proposed legislation tomorrow when it meets in Washington.
But striking miners are proving they can give as well as receive. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports on how they're helping people in South Carolina recover from Hurricane Hugo.
The situation is that people in South Carolina are hurting, and it's an opportunity for us to go down and help them. And I think the fact that we're hurting, enduring the pain and sacrifice of a strike, and yet we're willing to go down and help people who are in worse condition.
This group of 48 striking miners have loaded up a tractor-trailer truck and their own vehicles with emergency supplies. They'll deliver the community and union donations to McClellanville, South Carolina, a small fishing village north of Charleston that's gotten very little hurricane relief. Plus, the miners are delivering themselves for 5 days of cleanup. In the back of these trucks, miners have equipment like chainsaws and water pumps, and many of the miners are experienced carpenters and electricians.
I understand that they've got a lot of mud and water damage down there, and we need to get this mud out of these buildings. When I first contacted them, they said that they didn't have a building to even put any supplies in. All of it had to be cleaned up before they could even put any supplies in.
The union found out about McClellanville through the Charleston mayor's office. Miners expect to stay and camp out through Saturday. In Castlewood, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
The United Mine Workers Union is facing 2 new contempt of court complaints. One stems from the union's 4-day takeover at a Pittston Coal plant. The other is for the more than $24 million in court fines the union hasn't paid yet.
Забастовки, при которых не действует разумно на все необходимые для этого средства, включая политику.
Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev may have some trouble with strikes. The Supreme Soviet rejected Gorbachev's proposal to ban strikes for 15 months.
Rockefeller introduced the measure earlier this week. If passed, it would bail out the 1950 Benefit Trust, which is $54 million in debt and behind on payments to doctors and hospitals. News Center 5's John Mongol has more from the Virginia Coal Conference in Roanoke.
The proposed law would take money from the overfunded 1950 Retirement Trust and pull the 1950 Benefit Fund out of its deficit. It would also cause companies such as Pittston Coal, who have dropped out of the fund, to resume their payments to keep the fund operating.
Those who operate, incur obligations to employees, should somehow be there to see that the obligations are fulfilled on an equitable basis.
Pittston sees the plan as a private bailout to benefit the union and other large operators. But Pittston is not the only foe. Others see the bill as a way to legislate a settlement in the 6-month-old strike between Pittston and the United Mine Workers.
We've got to be very careful, and I stress this, very careful not to let the Congress of the United States try and get in and act as an arbiter in labor negotiations.
Pittston also says the measure will threaten miners' retirement security and could ruin U.S. companies' chances in international markets. But Ogden says without some change, the funding burden will be left to only a few companies.
And those responsible operators that are there will have to pick up those costs, be that totally equitable or inequitable. And the key we're trying to get at is the equitable treatment of meeting those obligations.
I don't impugn any ill motives to the sponsors of this bill. All I'm saying that the rest of us should proceed with caution.
Reaction to the proposed legislation is mixed, but the health benefits issue is one the coal industry is clearly going to have to deal with. In Roanoke, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
Officials of the United Mine Workers Union intend to apply for AFL-CIO membership. The UMW has not been a member of the American Federation of Labor, Congress of Industrial Organizations since the 1940s. Several AFL-CIO affiliated unions. Security was heavy around the courtroom after an incident yesterday. A union member was arrested after throwing an ashtray through a window into a room where company witnesses were waiting to testify. More of those witnesses filed through the courtroom today. telling about rock-throwing incidents that occurred in July and August. The company employees say they were ambushed by striking miners as they went to and they left their jobs at Pittston facilities. Judge Don McLaughlin is expected to rule later tonight. United Mine Workers should be affiliated with the 14 million member AFL-CIO by next month when the labor conglomerate holds its national convention. UMW officials say the move will formalize ties between their union and the American Federation of Labor, Congress of Industrial Organizations.
We all want to be under one roof, and it's something that Lane Kirkland has been pursuing for many years, and I think this is something he's quite happy about, and you know, I think it's going to add to the strength of the solidarity that we all need to fight off the corporate abuses that we are enduring here at Pittston, but also around the country.
Several AFL-CIO officials, including President Lane Kirkland, have shown their support for the mine workers' strike against Pittston Coal. Legislation that would keep health and pension funds for coal miners solvent has been introduced in the House and Senate. 9th District Virginia Congressman Rick Boucher, who co-sponsored the bill in the House, says the bill has the endorsement of the United Mine Workers Union and the Bituminous Coal Operators Association. Boucher says the bill will allow the transfer of money between different pension funds. Boucher says funds that have a surplus can be used to erase the deficit in others.
Coal Group. Russell County Circuit Court Judge Donald McLaughlin, who had fined the UMW $24 million for prior illegal strike activities, tonight tacked on another $6.9 million in fines. McLaughlin assessed the additional fine after ruling that between early July and mid-August, the UMW on 71 occasions violated a court order aimed at stemming violent activities with that strike. The city of Elizabethton has a new mayor tonight, Peggy Merriman, who was the top...
And the United Mine Workers Union. In the first visit by a federal representative to the Southwest Virginia coal fields, Dole heard both sides of the story today. As News Center 5 Cheryl Munn reports, Dole plans to use that information Saturday when she meets with the leaders from both sides.
Dole says she came to the coal fields to listen, not to take sides. And striking miners were eager to share tales of the rift this strike has caused in the community.
We see a lot of that, brothers against fathers, fathers against brothers.
How do you manage a situation like that? What happens?
Let me know anything you want me to hear. Dole says she's frustrated by the impasse, so she plans a meeting with both sides tomorrow in Washington. Striking miners say they are encouraged by Dole's visit and by the prospect of face-to-face meetings between leaders from both sides.
Just her being here is positive because it shows we do have movement now in the federal government.
It's a feeling shared by Pittston Coal Group officials.
It's been a very traumatic, difficult dispute on both sides of the picket line, and if we can find some way to resolve this, which has been our objective from the beginning, we're delighted if she can help somehow.
At a meeting in a Lebanon, Virginia restaurant, replacement workers and members of management who have been the victims of strike violence told Dole about their fears for their own safety and the safety of their families.
Things that have happened from my home. I've had threats on my door, place to
Dole says at Saturday's meetings, she plans to tell both sides it's time to get the strike resolved. In Lebanon, Virginia, Cheryl Munn, News Center 5.
Today it was Pittston's turn to tell a Senate investigating team its side of the coal strike. Yesterday, the committee talked with union rank and file. Today, Pittston officials gave the team a feel for its operations.
We took them to the McClure mine. We want them to see that that mine is as safe or safer now than it was the day it went on strike. The union uses a romantic image about this was the site of a disastrous occurrence, and they say this is the way the Pittston management operates. That accident occurred long before any of us arrived. And we operate our facility safely. We give it a top priority. We want them to see the mine. We want them to see the people that are there.
The committee will report its findings to the Labor Commission. A fire that gutted 1/3 of the
sources, but today help came all the way from the nation's capital. Tim Cable reports.
An important voice from Washington came to Southwest Virginia to lend an ear to concerns in the 6-month-long UMW Pittston strike.
A lot rougher than it was, but we're getting by, and I hope to see it over with. Sure appreciate you coming down and being with us.
Labor Secretary Elizabeth Dole began the day by talking with striking mine workers. She told the picketers that she was concerned about the strike's effect on their communities and families, and she revealed plans to try and get negotiations going again.
What I'm going to do, and have already done, as a matter of fact, is to ask Rich Trumpka of the mine workers and Paul Douglas of Pittston to meet in my office at 12 o'clock tomorrow, so that the three of us can have a dialogue, and we'll have a face-to-face discussion of where this situation is.
A situation that continues to drag on without a resolution. Dole says federal mediation has been, for the most part, unsuccessful, and she's frustrated with the impasse. Strikers say her efforts are appreciated.
She's worried about the way the families are treated here in the community and how things are going down since the strike.
Do you think she's genuinely caring about the situation?
I think she is. She wouldn't be down there if she wasn't.
Robert drove on flat tires for 5 miles, Robert, but they were still chasing him.
From the coal fields, it was on to Lebanon, where Dole heard the company's side of the story. The secretary talked to Pittston employees who told her about the incidents of violence that strikers have plagued them with.
I believe she understands the other side of the story now, because a lot of the things that it's been in the paper, you know, has not told a complete story. The pain and, you know, the children, the things that they're learning now will I don't think ever be changed. It'll stick with them for the rest of their life.
While Pittston President Mike Odom wouldn't speculate about the meaningfulness of tomorrow's Washington meeting, he did say that Dole's involvement could do some good.
Anytime someone of her stature comes to the coal field, it sheds light on the violence that's occurred on all sides of the picket line.
Although her visit was brief, Dole heard a lot of opinions from both sides in the dispute. Now it's back to Washington, where she'll take what she's learned and put it to use. Tim Cable, Eyewitness News 11, Carbo, Virginia.
Meeting today between the heads of Pittston and the United Mine Workers Union. The first time the two have met face-to-face since the strike began.
Mr. Douglas and I, they had an opportunity to discuss their differences with one another face-to-face, and both are committed to resolving this dispute, and they have agreed with my decision to appoint a super mediator. I feel the time is right for me to offer my good offices and to move forward with the super mediator. So that is the plan, and as I say, it was a good meeting.
Dole met with workers on both sides yesterday in Southwest Virginia.
The report from several national denominations says injustice results from corporate, state, and federal force protecting the company from union attempts to limit coal production. Pittston is criticizing the report as plagued with inaccuracies, including claims that the company ignores local investments and is looting coal field families. Pittston says it has invested over $1 billion in the coal fields during the last 5 years, yet suffered more than $100 million in losses during the same time.
Financially strapped Dickinson, Russell, and Tazewell counties. But as News Center 5's John Mongol reports, union officials aren't happy with the plans.
And the children whose education is a vital part of their future should not have to suffer in the classroom as a result of this dispute that neither side can somehow find the time and the effort to resolve.
With that, the governor proposed reducing school construction loan payments by nearly $500,000 for Dickinson County, $350,000 for Tazewell County, and by over $300,000 for Russell County.
This is something that will help us on the short term. On a strained budget, this is money that we can defer payment on for another year, and we can use that money to try to maintain our present level of services.
Beliles met with officials from several Southwest Virginia counties in July who were concerned over the fiscal effects of a prolonged coal strike between the United Mine Workers and Pittston Coal.
The thing that impressed me in our meetings with the local government officials was they did not want to have to cut their education budget.
In addition, some $3 million loaned to a new industry in Lebanon will be diverted to help bring more business into the coalfield counties.
Originally, the payback was supposed to go to the state, and if I understand correctly from the news conference, this money will be diverted to the Coalfield Economic Development Authority.
But union leaders are not happy. UMW Representative John Cox called Belisle's effort a slap in the face and said people don't want his money. The governor's proposals are a welcome relief for the strike-ridden counties here in Southwest Virginia. But one fact remains clear. Neither the governments nor the economies will be back to normal until the labor dispute is resolved. In Lebanon, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
Virginia's governor complimented his state police force today and their role in maintaining order in the 6.5-month-old strike. Governor Jerry Belisle said neutrality has been branded as opposition in the strike between Pittston Coal and the UMW. But Belisle says the troopers have performed admirably and with restraint under extremely difficult conditions. He noted several local businesses have refused to serve state police and that state police have been taunted by striking miners. So far, the extra state police in the region have cost Virginia $6 million. Carter County emergency preparedness a victim in a communication snafu. When Virginia Governor Jerry Belisle announced economic help for Southwest Virginia counties hurt by the coal strike, John R. Cox was quoted as saying the people of Southwest Virginia don't want the governor's help. Now John L. Cox is taking the heat for John R. Cox's comments. The story gets more confusing. John R. Cox is a UMW field representative who isn't authorized to comment. The union has since disavowed his remarks. But John L. Cox is an international representative who is authorized to comment. He says he's glad the governor's helping the region, and he doesn't want people to think otherwise.
For the election, he came on the heels of the UMW's endorsement, something that gave him a big boost in this region when he ran for lieutenant governor in 1985.
I hope to improve upon what we did before. We'll carry the area. The people know me. I've spent more time than any candidate running for statewide office in Virginia's history in the southwestern part of the state. And I talk with the people, to the people, and I listen to them.
Wilder says the union sees him as neutral, and his Republican opponent, Marshall Coleman, is on the company's side. Coleman officials say the union's endorsement of Wilder must signal a secret agreement that could jeopardize the state's right-to-work law.
I don't have any secret agreement with anybody. People who know Doug Wilder know that when Doug Wilder speaks his mind and speaks his piece, he speaks it to all people, openly, above board.
The union also endorsed other Democrats, but not Attorney General Mary Sue Terry, who's directly over the state police, and not Joe Johnson, a candidate for the 6th District House seat.
I have not sought any endorsements. When I'm elected and I go to Richmond, I want to be free and not be tied to any group, and I can represent the voters, the individuals in this district, which includes the teachers, the working class, the elderly, the young, and the old, all of them. I want to represent all and not be tied to any special group.
In Bristol, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Violence by the union. More testimony was heard today concerning alleged violent strike-related activities in and around Pittston's Moss No. 3 prep plant. Clinchville attorneys called more than 12 replacement truck drivers to the stand who testified they were rocked while carrying coal to and from the Moss plant. One trucker even videotaped a rock-throwing incident, but no miners were identified by today's witnesses.
I have yet to see the first piece of evidence that the union instigated, participated, ratified, condoned any of those activities.
Clinchville coal attorneys refused to comment on camera today, but said they were hoping to subpoena several high-ranking UMW representatives. UMW attorney Bill Schultz indicated he would call Pittston Company President Mike Odom to the stand before the hearing ends.
Why doesn't he come up with these names that his vast state police assistance and the advanced security people provide to him. We contend it's just not there.
Schultz says the UMW would take action against any miner who was proven to have participated in violent activities while on the picket line, but not until the evidence is proven in court.
We're not going to cut somebody's strike benefits off or toss them into the drink until we have more than just an allegation. I mean, that determination of that's not even for me to make.
An attorney for Clinchville Coal indicated subpoenas had been issued for several United Mine Worker representatives, including Jackie Stump. The hearing is expected to continue tomorrow.
The development of the Stedman Farm.
Another round of contempt of court charges in Russell County. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell tells us about the case. A crowd of striking miners is continuing to maintain a vigil outside the Russell County Courthouse. Inside, a courtroom filled with more has heard 2 days of testimony about the union's takeover of Pittston's Moss 3 preparation plant and rock throwing and gunfire directed at Pittston during the strike since mid-August.
It's just, the proof's just not there. It's just too simple to say that there's a strike going on, a rock got thrown, therefore the union's responsible for the rock being thrown. That's just illogical.
Pittston Coal Group President Mike Odom came to the courthouse after receiving a summons from the union. Does it go along with your strategy that the strike has been nonviolent?
It does.
Can Mike Odom back that up?
He can. He can.
No, the union's not nonviolent. Everybody knows it.
There's been a delay in another criminal contempt proceeding against the union for failing to pay court fines. A postponement has been granted after Union President Richard Trumka and others failed to get notice of the proceeding. In Lebanon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5. The Associated Press is reporting that former Labor Secretary William Ursery has been picked to mediate the strike. An official announcement is expected sometime tomorrow. The president
Dole, who was in the coal fields recently talking with both the United Mine Workers Union and the Pittston Coal Group about the strike, named William Usry to be the supermediator in the dispute. Usry is a former labor secretary serving under President Gerald Ford. Usry has been successful in the past in settling major labor disputes.
It seemed to me that the time is right now to use the good offices of the Secretary of Labor and to try to facilitate the collective bargaining process.
I have had a call this morning from the company after they were advised officially by the Department of Labor that I would be the mediator. They called and assured me that they would give me their full cooperation, and they were hopeful that a resolution could be found to the dispute. I was very happy to receive that call. I told them so because I am absolutely convinced that people of goodwill, and if they will bargain in good faith, we'll find a solution to the dispute, because obviously it has to be settled.
The UMW is calling Usry the best choice to settle the strike. The Pittston Coal Group is not lavishing as much praise, but is positive. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has more on local reaction.
A super mediator is something the union has wanted all along to break the ice, freezing the union and Pittston in a contract stalemate. And union leaders are praising the selection of Usry.
And the fact that he's been in some high-level negotiations, been a mediator in those negotiations in the past, served at different levels of government, too. And I think he's got the credentials for helping to resolve this type of dispute.
Pittston President Mike Odom is positive about Dole making a decision quick after visiting both sides. Before talks start, both sides will be talking with Usry about whether the new talks will be face-to-face, will involve the same negotiating teams, or include Paul Douglas, the chairman of the coal company's corporate parent, something the union's also been pushing.
I hope that the union is not going to continue its tiresome way of trying to gather exclusively under itself the right to dictate who sits on the other side of the table, because it was clearly discussed in Ms. Dole's office Saturday week ago that each party would have the right to name its own bargaining team.
The strike has put a big financial drain on both sides of the picket line, and both sides say they want it to end.
We have families, we have bills like everyone else. We've got to make those payments. And as soon as this strike's over with, we get back to work and life goes back to normal.
we didn't want the strike to start. It's been a very tragic, emotionally traumatic strike that's torn the communities. It's caused a lot of businesses to fail. It's been violent. It's caused a lot of anguish. And to what end?
In Russell County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Shows
company after they were advised officially by the Department of Labor that I would be the mediator.
At least temporarily. Russell County, Virginia Circuit Judge Don McLaughlin has found the union guilty of 84 more contempt of court charges, but he's delaying more fines against the union. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has the details.
Judge McLaughlin says he doesn't want to help or hurt either side at this point. New hope for resolving the strike since former Labor Secretary William Ussery has been appointed mediator. Spokesmen for the union say the previous fines have given Pittston an advantage.
I think Pittston's relied on the state court to negotiate for them, to put enough economic pressure on the union and on these workers down here to give in to their demands. So yes, I see it as a pleasant change.
Pittston is obviously trying to bust the union, they're trying to do it here in this courtroom in Lebanon.
McLaughlin noted that since the union's 4-day takeover of Pittston's largest preparation plant, there have been fewer reports of violations of his court orders restricting strike activity. The judge will decide December 8th what penalties he will impose for that plant takeover and other violations around the same time. Until then, he's put the union on good behavior notice, saying he will consider punishing the union for anything that happens until then.
The success or failure of it will be determined by how the union reacts to it. If they stop the violence, we're all better off for it. If they don't, then it'll be a miserable failure.
In Lebanon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Police say an explosion destroyed a Pittston Coal Group supervisor's car in Washington County, Virginia. Another supervisor required hospital treatment after an attack on his way home from work. The violence comes one day after a judge deferred more punishment against the union for violence.
You read and see on TV the stuff happening in Lebanon and Afghanistan and stuff like this. This happens to be America, though.
Judge McLaughlin yesterday, I applaud his efforts to send a signal to the union to tone the violence down, but apparently they took that signal as an open season to go hunting for Pittston supervisors and employees.
It's a continuation of the standard Mike Odom hysteria. But, I mean, let's face it, we've been fined heavily in Judge McLaughlin's court. We obviously, from an international point of view, were very happy with his ruling yesterday. And I think just common sense would say that the only people that ultimately would benefit from these kinds of activities would be Pittston. I think it sounds fairly suspicious.
This damage occurred overnight after the supervisor parked at a service station and joined a carpool. Another supervisor's car burned in the Dant, Virginia area. Police don't know if the fire was strike-related. A Mountain City, Tennessee its support of House Delegate Don McLaughlin Sr. in Virginia's 4th District, it is fielding a strong candidate against him. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has more on the campaign from Buchanan County.
A lot of people didn't think we were serious, but nobody, I don't feel like anybody can run a 2.5-week campaign like we've run.
With a late independent write-in campaign, Jackie Stump, the president of Virginia's UMW, is making a surprise challenge against Don McLaughlin Sr., a 24-year veteran of the legislature who's won his last 2 terms without opposition.
I consider it strong. I consider it strong opposition. I was not prepared for it. I am not prepared for it. I have relied upon friends, acquaintances, supporters that I've had over the years to rally around me and hopefully get more votes than will be cast against me.
Stump has the benefit of lots of union resources, but says the campaign is not revenge for the strike-related fines levied against the union by McLaughlin's son, who is a judge. Stump says he's counting on more than the union vote.
And I'm proud to be a United Mine Worker, but that don't make me think just UMWA. I mean, I can think hospital workers. I know I've got friends as hospital workers. I got friends that are working non-union mines that are close friends of mine. And they know that as long as we stand up for working people, then they got a fighting chance too, keeping a job.
McLaughlin says his accomplishments include getting state funding for roads, education, and industrial development in the region. He disputes Stump's claim he's failed to speak up for the district.
We have spoken up, we have yelled, we screamed. I hope I can be given some credit for having fewer problems now than we had 10 years ago. I know that 10 years ago we had some almost 200 miles of unpaved roads in this county. I know that since the advent of the coal and gas road tax, we have built 50 miles. We have paved 50 miles of those roads. Now that's 50
In
miles.
Buchanan County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Unions trying to break the company through proposed legislation to bail out the union's debt-ridden health and retirement funds. If passed, Pittston could be forced to pay into them.
Trump crafted this bill to bust Pittston. That's what it's designed to do. It would charge us $90 million over the next 3 years, which is nearly twice the deficit in the funds, and 1% of those people are ours.
Odom says payments and penalties could cost the company $90 million, and Pittston couldn't afford that. Republican Randy Lowe negotiations with Pittston. As News Center 5's John Mongo reports, Ussery met with both sides today to lay out the groundwork.
William Ussery emerged from talks with the company and the union. Separate meetings will continue with the two sides through Monday.
At the moment, I feel good that we can bring it off. As I said, it's very difficult, very complex, very hard. There's a lot of emotions in it.
Ussery says a settlement of the strike will require give and take on both sides, and apparently both the UMW and Pittston are ready.
If Pittston is as committed as the union is and Mr. Ussery is, I believe that we can resolve this dispute.
I'm hoping that Mr. Ussery, who is obviously a very skilled and polished expert in the industry, can bring some new ideas and some new ways of dealing with the issues. So we're looking forward to working with him to try to end this dispute.
The former Labor Secretary under President Gerald Ford also met with federal Judge Glenn Williams, who has been involved in the strike as a judge as well as trying to bring the two sides together.
I went through the complete history of my conduct with them and on both sides, and what my view of what some of the issues were and how they could possibly be resolved.
Both sides appeared committed to a hectic schedule for the negotiating process.
And once we start, we're going to remain in pretty much continuous bargaining until we find an answer to it.
It takes pressure. Pressure on the union, pressure on the company, and someone with the ability to apply that pressure through whatever means, be it the government, public scrutiny, or whatever.
And one important milestone may already have been reached, a moratorium on the violence and civil disobedience associated with the strike from all parties involved.
Got a commitment from both sides that every effort will be made to try to that will cease.
A breakdown of this kind could vastly interfere with the proceedings.
While everyone appears optimistic, nobody will predict when the strike will be over. John Mongol, News Center 5.
Governor Douglas Wilder against former Attorney General Marshall Coleman. Wilder, who voted in his hometown of Richmond, is the favorite. If he wins, Wilder will make history by becoming the first black in the nation to win a governor's seat.
The continuity of Virginia's progress is paramount interest in the minds of most people that I've encountered. And when you speak about progress, that means building and bringing the people together, as well as building upon what we've had, whether it's transportation, education, economic development, or what have you. And I think the final count will be qualifications and experience, who's best able to do that. And don't think there's any question in the minds of the voters that I will be, and I think that will be reflected this evening.
Coleman, whose anti-abortion stand may have hurt his candidacy, voted in McLean, Virginia.
My impression going around the state is very distinctly that the momentum is on our side, that we are on the crest of a wave, and that tonight that wave is going to land with me at the top.
How does the abortion issue come into play in the election?
Well, that's one issue, and there are many issues in this campaign. As I talk to the voters of the state, they are very concerned about taxes, about transportation, about education, about the environment. And I think when they come into the voting booth that they are going to vote for the person that they believe can best lead the state of Virginia in the next 4 years, who has the executive experience, the administrative experience, and the integrity to get the job done.
With an hour left for Virginians to get to the polls, a moderate to heavy turnout is being reported across the state. Southwest Virginia is following the statewide trend. News Center 5's John Mongol has more on the voting in Bristol and Washington County.
Most precincts in Bristol, Virginia and Washington County reported heavy voter turnouts this morning, though the voting appeared to be more brisk in the city polling places.
We're really surprised that we've had lines this morning we didn't have even with the presidential election.
Conventional wisdom dictates that voter turnout is better in fair weather, but the rain did not seem to stop the flow of lunchtime voters in Abingdon. Even the precincts without a line were reporting about 100 voters per hour coming through.
We have had excellent turnout. We've had a steady stream. There's not really any long lines, but there's a steady stream of...
A record number of people have registered to vote in Virginia this year, and that interest in this year's election is mirrored throughout the area.
I have seen voter turnout this good before, but it's been a few years. It's a little heavier than usual.
Is it as heavy as normally you'd get in a presidential year?
Yes, it is. Very much so.
The polls will remain open until 7 o'clock tonight. John Mongol, News Center 5.
There appears to be a heavy write-in turnout in the 4th District of Virginia, covering Buchanan County and part of Tazewell County. Jackie Stump, president of the Virginia United Mine Workers, is waging the write-in campaign against Democrat Don McLaughlin Sr. At stake is the state delegate's seat McLaughlin has held for more than 20 years. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports.
Well, you never know till polls close there, but we've got a good indication in a lot of places there that it's looking real good. But you don't take anything for granted.
Jackie Stump's union organization is making a big last push at the polls with hopes of pulling off what some considered a long shot.
Here in Pennsylvania anyway, whether they vote for Jack or not. I mean, they don't have to vote for Jack just to get a pencil. We give it to them anyway.
But the whole idea is to give them a pencil so that they can write in, right?
Oh, yeah. But they have pencils in there anyway, some of them. But now, we talk to them and we give them a pencil before we even talk to them and explain about how to write Jack Stump's name in.
McLaughlin supporters are also campaigning right outside the polls, trying to sway voters at the last minute. One McLaughlin supporter, a UMW member, sees Stump's campaign as revenge against McLaughlin's son, the judge who's levied strike-related fines against the union.
If I come out in order to crucify a man on account of what his son done, and I'm speaking of Mr. McLaughlin and Donald Jr., the so-called $30 million, $60 million fines that was handed down, I feel that this is wrong to set out to destroy the welfare of every citizen in this county.
Voters might have expected to see a lot of the strike uniform of camouflage around Stump's poll campaigning, but that hasn't been the case. It's part of the strategy of Stump to get more than the union vote.
We was ordered not to wear it today.
Problems with some voting machines has created lines and the use of paper ballots. When the polls close, the write-in vote is expected to make counting slow.
Oh, yes. They'll count those write-ins after the polls close, so that's going to take a while.
In Buchanan County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Bristol, Tennessee city officials will at 7:30, which showed the beginnings of a Democratic sweep. Even though Don Beyer had trailed Eddie Dalton throughout the campaign in the race for lieutenant governor. But it has been pretty much a Democratic sweep. NBC has projected Douglas Wilder, the Democrat, the winner in the governor's race by a close margin over Republican challenger Marshall Coleman. As we mentioned a moment ago, Northern Virginia auto dealer Don Beyer upset State Senator Eddie Dalton in the lieutenant governor's race. And as expected, Mary Sue Terry will remain as Attorney General, winning easily over Joseph Benedetti. As late as last week, almost 40% of the likely voters we surveyed did not know who Benedetti was. The Democratic sweep continued in the House of Delegates races. In District 2, Jack Kennedy retained his seat by defeating Bonnie Elasser. The margin was 300 votes last time, 3,000 this time. In District 3, Bud Phillips defeated Republican challenger Roy Smith in a close race. In District 4, the big upset, a write-in winner as Jackie Stump, the president of the United Mine Workers in Virginia, defeated Don McLaughlin, a 24-year veteran of the State House. Stump began his campaign just 3 weeks ago and won easily. And in District 6, Democrat Joe Johnson defeated his Republican challenger, Randy Lowe. That is the seat given up by John Brown. Now let's take a look at some of the local races. In Washington County, Virginia, Jim Litton keeps his seat on the Board of Supervisors, turning back 2 challengers. In Taylor District, Maurice Paris is the winner over Joe Ray. And in the Wilson District, Cecil Simcox defeated 2 challengers for the Board of Supervisors. Washington County voters also said no to the county borrowing $3 million to renovate the courthouse. The margin was about 5-1. In Smith County, Ray Lawrence won the Board of Supervisors seat from the Adkins District. And in Russell County, Glenna Kaiser won the Commissioner of Revenue race. In Bristol, Virginia, Sheriff Marshall Honaker, Commonwealth's Attorney George Warren, Commissioner of Revenue Mary Sue Baker, and Treasurer Emma Miller were unopposed and collected about 4,000 votes apiece. And 3 House of Delegates races were uncontested. Ford Quillen in District 1, Jeff Stafford in District 5, and G.C. Jennings in District 7. Incumbent Jack Kennedy ran away in the 2nd District House seat representing Wise and Dickinson counties. The Democrat beat Republican Bonnie Elasser by more than 3,000 votes. Cheering supporters gathered at Kennedy's headquarters in Norton about 9 o'clock tonight as the votes tallied in Kennedy's favor.
We stood on our record, which I'm very proud to have done so by running a positive campaign over the past 90 days. It's an exhilarating experience to win by such a margin after the closeness of the 1987 election. My commitment to the people of the 2nd Legislative District remains very strong. We intend to work very hard in the next session of the General Assembly for the benefit of all of Southwest Virginia.
In Wise, a quieter crowd gathered around their candidate, Bonnie Elasser, who admitted defeat.
Oh, I gave it the best shot I had, and the people have spoken, and I have no problem living with that.
Surprisingly, Elasser lost in her hometown of Wise. She had won in that race 2 years ago in the race against Kennedy. Democrat Bud Phillips is now a delegate for Southwest Virginia. Phillips beat his opponent Roy Smith tonight by a total of about 960 votes. This will be Phillips' first time as a delegate, and he says he already has a strategy for rejuvenating the coal industry in Southwest Virginia.
We're going to very quickly, starting tomorrow, put together a blue ribbon commission throughout Southwest Virginia and ask UMWA to come into it. We're asking coal operators, equipment operators, local government officials come into our commission and try to find out what the problems are, what are the solutions, and see if we can get together a legislative agenda for January.
Phillips says education and family farming are 2 other issues he will be looking into. Democrat Joe P. Johnson won an easy victory in the 6th Legislative District tonight. The 57-year-old Abingdon attorney won Washington County precincts by over 2,000 votes. But Bristol voters favored Republican Randy Lowe by 36 votes. The Democrat credited his victory to a positive campaign.
Mudslinging and negative campaigning and distortion of my record the 4 years that I was in the legislature certainly wouldn't and will not be approved and tolerated by the people in this district. People that knew me and have known me for 50 years, and they just didn't approve of it.
Johnson served in the House of Delegates from the district from 1966 until 1970. The race was Lowe's first.
He's a well-respected and a well-liked man in Washington County. And the voters came forth and said that today. And I don't think that's anything against Randy Lowe. I think that just shows a matter of respect for Joe Johnson, and we'll have to accept that.
Johnson replaces Republican John Brown, who did not see Center 5's big upset over longtime state delegate Don McLaughlin Sr. Stump took 68% of the vote, with a heavy turnout of write-in balloting in the 4th District. How much did the 7-month-old coal strike have to do with it? News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports.
The surprise campaign and the union organization undoubtedly worked in Stump's favor against McLaughlin, a 24-year veteran of the General Assembly who's rarely been opposed for re-election. McLaughlin is the father of the judge who's levied big fines on the union for strike activity. Although Stump insists he didn't take on McLaughlin to punish his son, he says the strike did help.
Well, I think it helped me as being known. I mean, you know, naturally, I didn't go into somebody that was ever unheard of, but as far as the union, I think I got the union votes, sure, I think that, but I also think what it did, it pulled all workers together.
Widespread voting machine problems in the district, much of it caused by old paper clogging, forced the use of a lot of paper ballots, and that may have helped the write-in campaign also. But Stump says generally the electorate was dissatisfied with McLaughlin.
When I got out and the people that I seen throughout all the counties, people said, you know, too long people takes everybody for granted. They, you know, people told me, said, when you get there and we can put you there, we want you at least to come back and see us.
McLaughlin has sent word of congratulations and cooperation to Stump. Since the vote, Stump has announced he's talking with UMW International President Richard Trumka about giving up his leadership of the union's District 28.
Even if I do resign the presidency, I'm not leaving the area. The strike is still mine. That's one of the things that when President Trump asked me was if I would take the international board member job, one of the things that I asked him was that I started this strike with my people, and I expect to be able to end this strike with my people when we reach a contract.
Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Also in connection with the coal strike, super mediator William Usry will have his first face-to-face meeting with both sides tomorrow in Arlington, Virginia. According to the UMW, Union President Richard Trumka will be there, as well as Paul Douglas, president of the Pittston Coal Group's parent corporation. Super mediator William Usry has scheduled the meeting at a hotel to last an hour.
We'll be giving certainly 120% to the process. We'll just have to wait and see, but obviously it's a good sign.
Coal Group President Mike Odom has had behind-the-scenes participation in previous negotiations. This time, he will also be taking part directly.
He asked for me to be in this one. If it's beneficial, the following meetings, we'll see whether I'm there or whether I'm here.
Usry, a former U.S. Labor Secretary, was named super mediator by Labor Secretary Elizabeth Dole. Washington County.
Jackie Stump, UMW District 28 president, won the support of union voters and union money in defeating veteran legislator Joe McLaughlin. Although he says he'll work for all the people of his district, he will seek to make coal mines safer.
But we were up there talking about gas in the mine and diesel fumes, you know, and a lot of people thought you could just build a smokestack out of the ground and let it go out like that. The legislators, I hope I'll be able to inform them of what mining is all about. And I think it'll help all the miners here in Southwest Virginia, both union and non-union.
Stump also says he's against using taxpayers' money to fund state police escorts in the coal fields, and he's looking forward to making a difference in serving the people. Workers were walking an informational picket line again today at General Mills in Johnson City.
In the coal strike this afternoon, the talks were closed to the media, and there is very little information about their first trip to the bargaining table with strike mediator William Usry. Usry, a former Labor Secretary, was appointed to mediate the 7-month-old strike last month by the current Labor Secretary Elizabeth Dole. Officials at Beecham Laboratories say over one
strike continues in Southwest Virginia. There will be no winners.
Odom was speaking today to the Kiwanis Club of Kingsport and said he is optimistic that super mediator William Ussery can bring new insight to the process of ending the 7-month-old strike. But Odom said as long as the strike continues, neither side can benefit positively.
I think we can reach an agreement. I sincerely hope Mr. Ussery can bring some rational thinking to both sides of the table. There's no more win-lose for the United Mine Workers and companies affiliated with it. It's a win-win or a lose-lose. So,
UMW and Pittston officials will resume bargaining discussions on Monday in Arlington, Virginia.
Monday, United Mine Workers Union and Pittston Coal will try and work out a solution to the 7-month-old strike with the help of a super mediator.
So that paints one side. That was when the real trauma began hitting this country in America. We compete in a different business. Incremental, marginal, fringe, whatever term you'd like. Benefit funds were to automatically... I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Ussery, and he has a very long track record of solving disputes. In the discussions yesterday, outside of the meeting, I was talking with him, and he says he thinks it's somewhere over 800 disputes that he's found a way to resolve, and he admitted that this is going to be one of the more difficult ones, but he's pretty innovative. I'm looking forward to working with him, and I think he'll bring some new insights to trying to settle this dispute.
The meetings begin Monday in Arlington, Virginia. Tomorrow,
some local miners were occupying a coal plant, demanding those face-to-face talks. Federal Judge Glenn Williams broke the news about the secret meeting and says the union and company misled him, union members, and the public. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has reaction from miners on the picket line.
I don't know whether it's good or whether it's bad, what the deal is. Maybe the judge now, but the miners and Pittston all in the same cell together.
Judge Williams' revelation suggests the union's rank and file was lied to by its leader because the union continued to occupy the plant, demanding something that Trumka knew had already been accomplished.
Well, how can we be lied to if we don't know anything about it? We have total confidence in the man. We expect him to get us a contract very shortly.
On the last day of the 4-day plant takeover, Judge Williams says union attorneys tried to get him to issue a statement or seek one from Governor Belials, calling for a meeting between Trumka and Douglas to end the takeover. Then Judge Williams found out through an unidentified source Trumka and Douglas were already meeting secretly in Canada.
It upset me because these lawyers who were here before me knew all this. Lawyers are supposed to be truthful to the court. They're officers of the court. And I told them, I said, I put my cards out on the table, and I expect lawyers, when they come in here, to do the same.
Some strikers say it's okay if they were lied to, and that may not be the only time.
No, I'm sure there's a lot of things goes on that we don't know about, probably don't need to know about. But I figure what they're doing is in our best interest.
Striking miners are also rationalizing it this way. If the secret talks in September led to the current negotiations, then all for the better. In Russell County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5 Tonight.
Part of his report on the coal industry has found some similarities between coal miners of today and yesterday. Mark joins us now, and Mark, I suppose that these similarities have to go beyond the recent strike and violence as well.
Much further, John. It's a good analogy on your point, but the more I began looking into the history of the coal strike and the history of the coal mining industry, the similarities between yesteryear and today are absolutely remarkable. Almost anyone in Appalachia will tell you disputes between coal miners and coal companies can become very violent. But if you look beyond the violence at the heritage of the coal mines, the similarities between yesteryear and today are quite remarkable.
Come and listen to my story, come and listen to my song. I'll tell you of a hero, now he's dead and gone.
There is a saying which goes, history repeats itself. In coal mining lingo, that means learn from the trials and tribulations of miners long ago.
Throughout the 80 years of coal mining history, the parallels of the struggles between yesteryear and today are numerous. For example, tragedy and human suffering.
The pressure from that explosion, it packed my chest. Dust. Yeah, there's times that I smother of a night. Pretty bad at times.
People were starving to death, and little babies, you say, I've seen little babies starve to death, and they think you're lying. They think, well, she's just saying that. That didn't happen. But it happened.
The miners, when they went inside the mines, never saw daylight at that time because they would go in early in the mornings before the sun was to rise, and they didn't come home till after the sun was already down in the afternoons for 12, 14 hours, and it was for $1 and something a day.
Sheila Wise is the daughter and wife of a coal miner. Her family has nearly 125 years coal mining experience. Her husband Carson is himself a third-generation miner. Together, they have heard many of the stories upon which the miner tradition has been built.
Grew up with that, sitting at the supper table listening to my grandfather and my dad talk about how the bosses would treat them, and if you stood up for your rights, or even back then if you tried to sign a union card, how they would make it hard on you and even try to run you off.
The union struggle has been a part of the history, but so has the battle for benefits to fight black lung, the will to overcome setbacks like the Hayden mine disaster in Kentucky, and the determination to change the perception of the miner as violent and ignorant.
Back years ago in the 40s and 50s, a lot of men had to drop out of school. I'm talking 4th and 5th grade, to go into the coal mines to help support their families. They wasn't dumb, but they had to stop their education to support their families. But nowadays you have a new miner. He's well-educated to run all this modern equipment. He understands the issues.
Miners are a proud people, and a strong belief in work, family, and God bind and tie them. And many, no matter how tough the times or disheartening the future, would ever consider another profession.
It's feast or famine. During the good times, you put what you can away and save, and for the bad times. So it's just like anything else. It has its ups and downs. I enjoy being in the coal fields.
Carson and the other miners may enjoy being in the coal fields, but economic woes are forcing many to search for a different future away from the coal mines. Betty and John, we will explore that avenue tomorrow.
Okay, Mark, thanks a lot.
Sure.
Striking coal miners in Southwest Virginia got an early gift this holiday season. Truckloads of turkeys from auto workers in Pontiac, Michigan arrived in St. Paul, Virginia today. It took 10 days for the auto workers to raise the $22,000 necessary to purchase the 2,100 turkeys.
It's a great feeling because we can see that union people are sticking together, and we see how appreciative the miners are of our efforts. Many people have come up and congratulated us and appreciate the turkey, but what it means to me more than that, it's there's solidarity amongst union workers.
All the turkeys are being distributed through central locations in Virginia. Miners are urged to contact their local for more information. And it's time for sports, and one thing for certain, there are
troopers have been relieved of strike duty, which has been costing the state $1 million a month. But police do say the reason is there has been a reduction in strike violence since super mediator William Usry called for a ceasefire.
It started tapering off a couple of weeks ago, and the number of instances have decreased since.
Police and strikers say it appears the Pittston Coal Group also has reduced its private security force, but Pittston has not confirmed it. Striking coal miners are getting treated to Thanksgiving dinner. More than 2,000 turkeys have been delivered to the coal fields, compliments of union auto workers in Michigan. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports.
Turkeys arrived by the truckload at distribution centers. Striking coal miners waited in lines to get them by presenting their union cards.
To me, really, this year, it means Thanksgiving dinner. Some of us have, it's old for vehicles, houses, and things, and every dollar helps.
The turkeys have been purchased from local retailers with funds from an auto workers union local in Pontiac, Michigan. The local asked each of its 9,000 members for a $10 donation for the turkeys after visiting the coal fields this fall.
That miners have not been forgotten, and UAW members are very concerned about their welfare, so we want to make it a happy Thanksgiving.
All of the love and support the miners have received, and of course, you know, they're getting by with their strike fund still. That, to me, is a lot to be thankful for.
Strikers received less than half their usual income from a union strike fund. A new round of contract negotiations with supermediator William Ussery has boosted hopes for an end to the 7-month-old strike, but not everyone is optimistic.
I don't think Pittston's ready to settle. They put their ad back in the paper, didn't they? They're rehiring them, so that don't sound much like they're interested in settling the contract.
In case the strike doesn't end before Christmas, the union is accepting donations for strikers and their families through a special Christmas fund. In Castlewood, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Texas.
Over the last 8 months, the latest show of support is one of the most generous so far. And it comes from another union that's making sure all supporters visiting the UMW are nourished, literally. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has details.
The union's Camp Solidarity has served as a rustic camping area and hotel for over 50,000 outside supporters since the strike started. Now compliments of a $100,000 gift from the Hotel and Restaurant Workers Union. Camp Solidarity will serve a free meal daily, cooked by 4 gourmet chefs put on staff at the camp for the duration of the strike.
They're used to cooking all kinds of things. Now, they won't be doing things as fancy here as they do at the Greenbrier, but they're good cooks.
UMW member Jack Barty turned his property near the mines into Camp Solidarity, complete with a bunkhouse now, when coal miners not on strike and members of other unions started pouring in to show support. From all accounts, the support has helped build the UMW's determination to win the strike.
To know that you're not in this thing by yourself, that's what really means a lot to us. And the sport has been just out of this world.
This camp is considered such a success, the union is opening up another Camp Solidarity. It's opening this week in Logan, West Virginia, where the strike has been underway also.
The point being is that we've got a strike in West Virginia as well as we do here in Kentucky, and it'll serve us not only the West Virginia area, but part of the Kentucky area.
In Russell County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5 Tonight.
Washington County's Joe Johnson, Buchanan County's Jack Stump, and Bud Phillips from Russell County. Veteran lawmakers say they'll all have to stick together on the issue.
Prepares to convene next month, but he knows he'll probably be penalized for his big win over veteran delegate Don McLaughlin, Sr. in the 4th District. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has the details.
Stump will be sworn in as a legislator, knowing if tradition holds true, he'll face a blackout by the powerful Democratic caucus. That's because he turned from Democrat to independent to beat a veteran incumbent Democrat. And it will mean Stump probably will find it hard to get support. But he says his colleagues in Richmond will get a message from the election result.
I expect that they're going to work with me and try to work with me. If I was going up there and I didn't have any support, or I just come in by a vote or two or something other like that, then it'd be a situation that people could question. I don't think anybody can question the election. I mean, it's a situation that the people spoke with a loud voice. And
Stump has been to the legislature before as a union lobbyist. He also spent 2 days in Richmond recently for the legislature's freshman orientation. He says he focused on listening and learning, but also fielded a lot of questions about how he pulled off the astonishing upset.
They're asking how in the world that you could do a 2.5-week write-in campaign. I mean, most of them said they never heard of it in history being on this type of level.
As president of the UMW in Virginia, Stump has been a key figure in the 8-month-old strike against the Pittston Coal Group. It has landed him in jail twice for civil disobedience. Well, which are you, a lawmaker now or a lawbreaker?
Well, I'm probably, it all depends on who you talk to. Some people may tell you that I'll tend to be a lawmaker, and some will tell you that I'm a lawbreaker. So as I told some of them when I get to the General Assembly up there, if there's anybody that needs to know what the insides of jails are like, I'll be maybe an expert on that.
Stump expects to decide before the Assembly convenes January 10th whether to give up the union position. In Castlewood, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Who's winning?
Enters its 8th month. Miners opened a second Camp Solidarity last night. We have more on that from Tim Waller.
We've been quiet for too long now, and we're standing up, speaking out, and raising hell. There ain't nothing wrong with that when you're running.
This is District 17's Camp Solidarity, a place to rest after a long day at the picket line, a place to serve over 1,300 hot meals in just one day.
And we're going to win this strike, regardless of whatever it takes.
And it's a place to boost morale in the wake of a grueling 8-month-old strike.
And a lot of people have already written our obituary. But let me tell you something. I'm not dead. You're not dead. No member of this organization is dead. And as long as we stand up and fight, we ain't never going to die and go away like they want us to.
500 union miners from nearly every coal-producing state in the country came to hear about the struggles in this state and the struggles miners must face in other states.
And if Gaston Caperton, God I wish, was the governor of Virginia, who knows, this thing may be over with, I don't know. It would be a hell of a lot closer than what it is right now. I could guarantee you that.
Miners say they're not a group of soldiers, they're simply coal miners who want to go back to work with a new contract. But they say they're prepared to be soldiers if they're left with no other choice. I'm Tim Waller reporting.
Scientists now say it's no longer a question of...
And in the latest wave of fines in the 8-month-old strike, the union was fined more than $33 million today. As News Center 5's John Munger reports, today's ruling brings a total of fines against the union to nearly $65 million.
The word came in around 5 o'clock this afternoon after a day of arguing and waiting for lawyers on both sides. Stiff fines were handed out for strike-related violence, roving pickets, and acts of civil disobedience. The union also garnered $4 million in fines for the 4-day takeover of the Moss No. 3 coal plant earlier this year, and $1 million for a march on the McClure mine several days later. Today's fines doubled the amount levied against the union during the 8-month strike.
It's not a happy day for anyone, certainly not the union, but it's repeated violations of the court's order and violations of the law of the Commonwealth that compelled and forced the court to take this action.
Judge Don McLaughlin, Jr. promised even heavier fines in the future if violations of his injunction continued. McLaughlin said the union showed flagrant contempt for the law and has used massive lawlessness to achieve its ends. And he blamed union leadership for the first time, saying it was active in organizing acts of violence and terrorism against Pittston Coal employees. Union lawyers would not comment on the court action. In Russell County, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5 Tonight.
More than
Donald McLaughlin Jr. slapped the UMW with the fines for illegal strike activities, including this takeover of the Moss No. 3 processing plant last September. UMW spokesman Gene Carroll said today that the fines only threaten to undermine negotiations, which are set to resume Monday. Meanwhile, a Pittston attorney says the fines are the only way to stop union violence. Today's fines bring the total to a whopping $64 million, all for what McLaughlin says is a violation by the UMW on his court order prohibiting the union from interfering with Pittston's operations. Well, a Jonesboro couple will serve
strike violence, boosting the total to nearly $65 million. UMW members are calling the fines revenge. They say Judge Don McLaughlin Jr. is penalizing the union for leader Jackie Stump's political victory over the judge's father last month.
I don't know, the judge is the only one who can speak for that, but it's clearly, when you start to figure out how much he has fined the union, probably going in excess of $60-some million already. It's unbelievable, and That's what everybody's saying. They can't believe it.
I think he's got some hard feelings on what happened in the election. There's no doubt in my mind.
Union members say the fines will hurt them in contract talks. McLaughlin, for the first time, blamed union leadership for strike violence.
The union steadfastly denies the charges that we have orchestrated violence. We've tried to conduct this strike in a nonviolent fashion from the beginning. The tragedy here is that we should be given awards, rewarded for what we have tried to do in Southwest Virginia.
Contract talks resume Monday in Arlington, Virginia. No matter how much hustle and bustle you face Christmas shopping, you probably haven't had to wait in line outside a shopping center. That's what happened today when hundreds of striking miners were treated to a free shopping spree. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports.
Nearly 2,000 Pittston Coal Group workers are on strike. Together with their families, they overwhelmed a building at the Russell County Fairgrounds for a free shopping spree provided by the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. The crowd was so big, at one point, they nearly emptied the shelves. The Food Workers Union raising $50,000 to provide this party. Dug in their pockets again on the spot.
Santa's out in 2 rider trucks trying to buy up this town.
This Christmas donation is the latest of many to striking miners from other unions, and this focused on the children of strike families.
I feel so bad for everything that they're going through. It's really hard. These kids are wonderful.
Union pay is less than half of a worker's normal income, and with the strike in its 8th month, even some really young children are aware of the economic hardship and the generosity of others.
I think this party's good because I giving stuff to people that can't hardly afford it.
These kids want the same thing most kids want for Christmas, but most of all, they want the strike to end.
The most thing I probably want is for the strike to be over because Daddy can't get to work and it's terrible.
In Castlewood, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
A Pittston Coal Group began. Miners and their families have had to make do on holidays. But as Tim Cable tells us, this Christmas they're getting some help.
Striking United Mine workers and their families crowded into the Russell County Fairgrounds exhibit hall, where they were the guests of honor at a giant Christmas party. A celebration thrown for them by their fellow union brothers from the Food and Commercial Workers Local 400.
Obviously, it's the toughest time of the year for families when they're faced with this kind of crisis, and we thought anything we could do to help them get through this season and do something for the kids especially, but it was important to everybody.
Especially important to the kids on hand, who were able to pick out warm clothing, lots of toys, and enjoy sweet holiday treats courtesy of the UFCW. And then there was a visit with you-know-who.
Hello there. Want to sit on Santa's lap? What's your name? You been a good boy this year?
Parents say the first Christmas at home with the strike has put quite a strain on the holiday season and on their pocketbooks.
I think the grown-ups are old enough or ought to be to understand. But now a child don't. They don't understand that Dad and Mom don't have that money coming in.
I've not even put up a tree. I have nothing to go under the tree, is why I've not put up a tree.
But there'll be lots of presents to go under the tree after this eventful day. And strikers can only hope that ongoing contract negotiations will prove just as successful.
I think they're doing a lot better. I have a lot more hopes for the contract to be settled now than a month ago.
But UMW leaders aren't quite so confident. They say the levying of more heavy fines against the union by Judge Don McLaughlin will hinder contract talks.
If a company thinks they've got a judge that's going to keep finding the union like that, then why should the company settle anything? They think the judge is going to find us completely out of existence, so there's no use for them to really try to seriously negotiate. So I think it's definitely going to hurt the negotiation process.
A process and a dispute that continues to take its toll on strikers. Tim Cable, Eyewitness News 11, St. Paul, Virginia.
All right, yes. Hey.
The one you want? Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
The tree cost $15. That was less than half what it would have cost in town. Money is tight in the Davis household right now.
It's tougher than usual. We're going to buy for the kids, and we're not going to buy for ourselves this year. And if we have anything left, later we'll buy for our parents, and that'll be it.
Plans to move from a trailer to a real house by the time the tree was trimmed this year had to be set aside.
Used our savings on the strike, so there goes our house.
Davis is one of 1,700 miners who went on strike last April in a dispute with the Pittston Coal Company over work rules and benefits.
Get more trucks down through here in a minute.
His strike pay from the United Mine Workers Union, about $900 a month, is only a third of what he was making as a coal truck driver before the strike.
That was my regular position. It hurts. That's my paycheck going up the hill, you know.
Although production has been reduced, the company has continued to operate the mines by hiring non-union workers. Part of the dispute is the company's demand to subcontract more of its operations to non-union labor. The miners say that would break the union. The mine workers have gotten strong support from other unions who are concerned that a company victory here could weaken their own bargaining positions during future negotiations. One of those unions, the United Food and Commercial Workers, sponsored a Christmas party this weekend. More than $30,000 worth of toys and clothing were donated to the striking miners and their families.
It's going to help a lot. The jackets especially.
Jonathan told Santa he wants a racetrack for Christmas.
A what?
A racetrack.
Oh, okay.
Jonathan's father has a Christmas wish, too.
Get the 88 agreement package signed before Christmas and back to work.
That, he says, would be the best Christmas present of all. Kenley Jones, NBC News, St. Paul, Virginia.